regularly coming there to Auroville, and some of his classmates from Doon School are people who have come there. People there is live there. For example, there is a person called Angad. Angad has his master's from Oxford in mathematics, but then he's chosen to consecrate his life in pottery making and really does a great job of it, and he's there. So that's the kind of, starting off from where Gopal said, I mean, this is actually meant to be a city of consciousness. The question would be, is it just another city? We have cities like New York, Paris, London, maybe beautiful cities in India, so on. But what was that one differentiating element about this? If we go back to the speech that Sri Aurobindo gave in Uttarpada, he actually speaks of also this concept of life divine. In a way, he's also referred to this as Sanatana Dharma. What he says is, it's not about negation of life. When you say you want to have a life anchored in, soaked in, and aspiring towards consciousness, he said it's not a life which says no to comforts, beauty, aesthetics, prosperity, abundance. He really spoke of that golden synthesis where you really excel on every dimension in the outer space, just as you also excel in the inner dimensions. And that is how he said the real sweet spot when you play a sport, possibly golf or anything, is when there is a particular angle at which you really hit. So he spoke about actually curating the space. And as Gopal said, this was meant to be a kind of an experimental township, a sandbox where it was not about no rules, but they said that, well, the rules that you have elsewhere in the world and in the country is for more pedestrian, more commonplace things. But here, these are a bunch of people who have attained a lot of it, seen the futility of working in the typical environments that the world offers. It could be you may be top honchos in the corporate world or in governance or anywhere. And you want to yet have a life which is synthesizing the two, meaning inner journey, where you really grow on the inside and do everything with that sense of consciousness and really excel on the outside. So for us at Auroville, really path-breaking discoveries on the outside, whether it's in the domain of green energy, whether it's in the domain of gold. We have a unit which actually made the gold foil the covering for Matru Mandir. So I'm saying just about anything. Flowers, we have a flower garden, we have a unit called Swaram, for example, which makes the world's biggest chimes, and we collaborate with some of the best musicians across the world. So just about any area, garments, art, music. So it's and then some of our guest houses, which are really, done in a very sensitive way. So the idea behind Auroville was to have a city of dawn, because Auro also refers to dawn. It's of course also named after Sri Aurobindo. He wrote in his seminal work called Life Divine. He said it's not this conventional image that had come to be in a way bequeathed to us, that you had to give up everything and then reach heaven. He said you can actually have that heaven, that paradise right here on earth by really carrying out every action, whether it's tiny. He talks about arranging the curls of a little baby, or the hand that makes Jupiter, the satellites of Jupiter swirl. So whether it's working with the infinite or the infinitesimal, but doing all that with that sense of care, attention to detail, consciousness. So a long answer, so it's a city of consciousness. And the idea was, she felt you needed a critical mass of people who are like guinea pigs, volunteers who want to be a part of this adventure of consciousness. And therefore, it really required people who will be willing servitors, come there, give up these conventional constructs of me, mine, ownership, what do I possess, but actually come here to live a life of giving, of consecration, of offering, and yet not at all wedded to mediocrity. It really talked about being excellent in whatever. You could choose to be a gardener and really have the best flowers. We have a person called Narad. He works in Matru Mandir. And I think his commitment, when you see flowers of different kinds, and there's a mother's flower garden coming up 800 species of flowers. So whether it is that, food, we have nearly 88 guest houses and restaurants. We have a sushi, Japanese restaurant there, and I think the sushi that is offered there is perhaps comparable to the best in the world. So whatever is taken up, it's done well. We have Auroville Bakery, Selvaraj is here, which makes some of the best. So the point is, it's a place where solar energy, again, we have Auroville Consulting, we are net positive. We have a smart mini grid now. So when it is about peak shifting, peak shaving, all of that, and also trying to work on ways of doing this whole battery pump storage systems. We're working on many, many innovative ideas. So Auroville, in short, is a city of dawn, realizing the futility of the way when you look at the turbulence, conflict across the world. And this is not something that was envisioned today when we see all that happening all around us. But he wrote about this in the 40s and 50s when Sri Aurobindo wrote about the life divine, and the mother founded it 58 years ago. 1968 was when she founded it in the month of February. And so it was meant to be a place where people who want to actually aspire for a higher life and want to excel in all of this can come and have a place which allows them that freedom, that the wherewithal to actually practice all of this. So that is what Auroville in a nutshell is about.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight. This is a rare privilege to sitting with these two wonderful women. The mother envisioned Auroville as a microcosm of diversity, a place where people from all over the world could come and live, beyond politics, beyond religion, beyond nationalities. It's a place where every human challenge is represented. Every neurosis, every conflict, every human limitation will be represented amongst the residents in order that they will be confronted and ultimately transformed. And the mother made the point that when, as she liked to call them, impossibilities, when these impossibilities are transformed, this will have such a powerful effect on that collective impossibility or shadow that plagues the world right now. So she also wanted the best and the brightest aspects of humanity to be there to help us take on this monumental challenge. Sri Aurobindo and the mother were not looking for an exit door. They didn't view life on Earth as if it was a transit lounge in an airport where you're just sitting there killing time, waiting for the next flight, and you're not necessarily responsible for your surroundings. They were focused on the transformation of the Earth, and they were focused on a divine life on Earth. And Sri Aurobindo made the point that the world is the way it is because highly conscious people have turned their backs on it. And so going forward, we need the meditative mastery, but it also has to be incarnated in the marketplace. And it's with that spirit that we move forward and continue to build Mother City. Thank you.
Perfect segue to my next question. Now, you see, when we were growing up on the 125th anniversary of Sri Aurobindo, the government of India took out a 2 rupee coin, which had the very famous "All life is yoga" in it. Now, when it comes to Sri Aurobindo and the mother, I think the most prevalent misunderstanding is that it does not, neither of the institutions adhere to any conventional idea of what you might think is a spiritual retreat or a spiritual institution. So it has an inner state and it has an external state. And I think administratively it is, you have to be extremely practical. And there are things to do, there are plans to implement, it has to be a functioning city. So can you tell us, can you synthesize this to actually incarnate best Sri Aurobindo's vision that all life is indeed yoga? And also something that my father always repeated to me, and the second page of the Life Divine, when you turn it, is all problems of existence are essentially problems of harmony. So this is a microcosm. So can you just bridge these two very famous, very well known, to me they encapsulate the task before us. Can you bridge these two and talk about Auroville?
I'll try. I'll do. Absolutely. Sri Aurobindo famously said, all life is yoga. To say that yoga is not something that you do for a few minutes in a cave and then come back to the rest, and then business as usual. He said, every moment, every point of your life and every role that you play, everything that you do has to be anchored in consciousness. So, and then, of course, the fact that, as John mentioned, as Alu also said, Auroville in a way is a microcosm. It's almost like a museum of all possible difficulties, conflicts that humanity world over can see. So sometimes when you see it, it does become a little overwhelming for us. But I think it's about us realizing that the road to heaven is also, like he famously writes in Savitri, it is paved through hell. As in, if you really want to be those forecomers and those trailblazers who want to take on that spirit, the adventure of consciousness and make a difference, you have to be able to, the world is preparing for a big change. She said, are you ready? Will you help? So if there are people who volunteer to be a part of it, they would have to be victims in some way in courts of a lot of bullying, a lot of attacks, all of that. But then without giving in, without losing patience, you work there. But there's this third statement, Alu, I'd just like to add, which Sri Aurobindo said, all can be done if the God touch is there. This is again a very famous line quote of his in Savitri. And in my limited experience here in the last 5 years, I've also actually palpably felt this. And Sri Aurobindo was a thorough rationalist. I mean, he's not, let us give it to him that at a young age of about 6, his father was an absolute Anglophile, and he didn't even want the shadow of India to fall on his son. Packed him off to UK and said he will not even come in contact with anything Indian language, Indian food, Indian culture, none of it. But I think existence has a way of really germinating, growing within us, and finally expressing itself with a vengeance. So when he came back, he had cleared the Indian civil services, back then the ICS, the civil services, but he consciously chose not to go for the horse riding exam and decided he didn't want to come and work in a country which was ruled by a foreign hand. He didn't want to be a part of this colonial administration here, and so he came back to India, worked with the Maharaja Sayaji Rao Gaikwad at Baroda for about 13 years, and that's where, with a vengeance, he mastered not just Sanskrit, Bangla, Hindi, little bit of Gujarati, Tamil as well. Later, when he comes to Pondicherry, we have evidence of his having worked with Subramanya Bharati, and he's translated Andal and works from these into Tamil as well. So that's the kind of, and he soaked himself in Indian culture. So coming back, he was a thorough rationalist. So when he used this word, all can be done if the God touch is there, I think it's also to tell us that if we think everything, there is the aspect of evolution. Auroville was also meant to be a kind of cradle, a kind of sandbox, not just for material things to bloom and blossom with consciousness, but for our own process of evolution to get accelerated. So what was believed is that there would have been a point in time, maybe several millennia ago, when maybe we were all in a process of evolution and we had the lions having a conference, and they could not have fathomed that there can be something as subtle as the mind. They would have thought physical strength is all there is. I mean, that is so very palpable and easy to understand. But then, yes, we have you have the evolution, and there are human beings today, and with the power of your mind and thoughts, you can really influence a lot of other things. But he says this is still work in progress. This is not a full stop. So what he went on to say is this process of evolution goes on, and there's something beyond the dimension, realms of the mind. And these are the higher order dimensions. He calls it intuitive, supramental intelligence, and so on. And there are isolated instances of people who have evolved hugely, and they are able to make a big difference in the environment around them. And that is what, when he says divinizing everything, life divine consciously, or God touch. So when you do that, then things that seem like unsurmountable problems, obstacles, you do realize that when you work, as he very famously wrote in his little book called Mother, with faith, sincerity and surrender, you find many of these problems absolutely evaporate. I mean, this is personal experience. I think many of our friends who have come here today from different walks of life would have experienced this. There are times you find something absolutely difficult staring at you, but then there is something that happens, and there's some shift, and suddenly you find that things start moving. So in that sense, I think this was meant to make people actually experience this way of living. So all life is yoga, and the fact that we all can be done if the God touch is there. And of course, it is a bed or a sand bed which is filled with all the possible conflicts. And this is again the whole history of Auroville till now. It has been checkered with conflicts, fights. We've also had very intense moments. Some of the seniors who are sitting here, this is right from the beginning. In fact, Government of India had nothing to do with Auroville way back. It was founded by the mother, and there was an entity called Sri Aurobindo Society. But then there was such intense conflicts that they went to the Supreme Court way back in the 70s. And finally, it was the residents who requested Government of India to step in and said, please take it over. And that's how the Act, Auroville Foundation Act, was enacted. To say that, so it's had a checkered history of this, but that's understandable, because if you really want to create something magnificent, unparalleled, it would have to go through all these journeys, the pathways of dealing with all kinds of conflicts, confusions, and so on.
Sri Aurobindo once said, I'm not interested in giving my sanction to the same old fiasco. My mother was very clear on creating a city, and she said it would be something new, something that had never been done before. So a city where money is no longer the sovereign lord, and every aspect of society would be represented. So in that way, every imbalance has to be checked, and really nothing can be left behind. So we are really in the early stages of this effort, but the vision is there, and their grace and guidance is there as well.
The other point that always comes to mind when one reads what the mother envisioned for Auroville is, just as you said, we are not here to replicate what has already been done. So we are in many ways moving into uncharted territory. And with all our imperfections, therefore we can expect conflict. But can you reconcile these two things? That what is the inner state that would be, that we might need to remind ourselves when we opt to be part of her vision in Auroville or in the ashram? And what is to be actually understood by the fact that there are no rules? Because when we grow up, even though we are brought up in quote unquote liberal households, we still have moorings. We have our moral compass develops. We have instincts. We have our sense of right and wrong. We have our sense of achievement and failure. These are very strong conditionings that we cannot ignore. But when you are confronted, when you choose to be in a place where the essential aspiration is that not to be bound by these conventions that have been, binding and retarding the progress of society for so long, how do you handle this? To what extent do these conditionings come in the way of realizing the goals? And the fact that what is exactly to be understood by this no rules that the mother has said?
There's an interesting, I'll just go a little behind to give a context of what I understand. I'm sure there are different ways of looking at this. When we talk of Sri Aurobindo, as we went through a little bit of his life, he was a patriot also to begin with. So the question that comes to us is, what is patriotism? Patriotism is when you love your country because it's your country. Just as you love your mother because she's your mother. I mean, you don't need reasons for it. But then he goes on to define nationalism and says, you talk of nationalism, that sentiment for your country, when you love your country, not just because it's your country, but because there's a certain identity, a certain ideology. And that ideology is what he refers to as Sanatana Dharma. Sometimes this is misinterpreted and understood. What does it mean? The essence of it is that It's the same spark of divinity in me, which is there in you, the other, even in living, non-living beings, everything. And which means there is no other. So you have that overwhelming sense of respect, reverence for everything, everyone around you. And when that happens, he calls it nationalism. So that is the unique spiritual or signature identity of Bharat, India. That is what he said. But when you do that, then if there's somebody across the border, it's the same divinity in them. If you look at, so then he goes beyond that and says there's internationalism, and that is how this whole idea of Auroville is well. So it's not about where are you from, what's the color of your skin, what's your belief systems, what are the moral compasses, what are the rituals, yes, no's. While there's reverence, respect, it's not to sanitize it of all of it and say no. In fact, Mother really appreciated, there were also many practices that she followed, like the Saraswati Puja in the ashram. It was very colorful, there were many things. So it was not about snuffing it all out and saying that there's nothing. But I think respecting and having reverence for every culture, I think, so going by that. So it was not, so when you have people from different geographies, different cultures together, in a way, you may not be able to actually rationally come to a common denominator and say this is the common minimum set of rules, practices for everybody. So in that sense, she said there wouldn't be any overarching rules of that kind. But yet, I think if it starts with that sense of there's no other, we're all together, in which case then, and along with this coupled is a very strong sentiment, the only thing she's asked for in the Charter of Auroville. When Auroville was to be established, Mother, in fact, there's a very interesting story. The managing trustee of the ashram, apparently he was Roger, who's the architect of Auroville, went up to him and said, Mother wants you to write the Charter of Auroville. So he said, I went and picked up the dictionary to figure out what is a charter. And then he tried to pen a few lines, but she had already got it ready. And he kind of adds that the two were very similar. So she, in her hand in French, wrote the Charter of Auroville. She didn't physically come on the 28th of February 1968 to Auroville when the city was founded, but this was read by somebody there, but she had in her own voice and then in three different languages as well, Sanskrit, Tamil and English, but she had read this out in French, the Charter. And while the Charter talks about what Auroville will be, I'll refer to that in my presentation. But the only thing, the one and the only thing that she expected, but she says to live in Auroville, one has to be a willing servitor of divine consciousness, which means there are no rules in that sense that tell you that, well, you can't step out of here, you can't enter here, or blah, blah, those kind of rules. But yet, I think the one rule is to put your ego, your personal preferences away. And if there's something given by her as the plan or as the way that we have to live, the ego of Auroville is much bigger than my ego. In that spirit, consecrating yourself and working towards realization of that. I hope that answers.
No, it's an excellent question. I think the mother also pointed out the problem with morality is that it attempts to sterilize life. And it sterilizes life to a point where there's very little left. So, as Madam was saying, the basis of understanding there was the charter itself. And upon that, people that entered were signing on to that. And she didn't want to create a lot of rules because she didn't want to sterilize life, and she didn't want to strangle the expression of each and every individual that came there. So it's something that can be taken out of context, but at the same time you can understand why she said it.
So one thing that is absolutely fascinating is that the Auroville is now 58 years old. 1968, the mother then was in her late 80s. And what is absolutely fascinating is the meticulous detail with which she actually planned the township. So could you please touch upon you did in the first question when you gave the introduction, what are the various fields in which Auroville has excelled. Can you give us a roadmap ahead as to how this vision, this plan, the mother, not only envisioned in the plane of the spiritual and the individual being part of her vision and being a servitor of the divine will, but also to actually manifest it as a concrete township on the ground. So, can you please tell us about the 58 years and what you and the journey ahead in terms of the actual manifestation of the town?
I think this is something very special and very close to all our hearts. Sindhuja is here, the team is all here, who've been slogging day and night to put this all together. I think going back to her, one of the things for me, as somebody who's been in the government for many years, is that often what we do is like paddy cultivation. In the sense we deal with health, with education, where it's about the macro numbers. We're not so much into rose cultivation, if you see the difference. I mean, we're not so much into it's about the numbers and large and dealing with an entire state. But what for me personally has also been a learning is that the kind of attention to detail that mother gave for every little thing here, she would go into all aspects. So coming back to this, she never compromised and never settled for mediocrity. I think she, even sometimes when tasks are big, we tend to have this attitude, no, let's get it done, expediency, practicality, chalta hai, let's finish this. We tend to sometimes have that attitude. But I think she never compromised for mediocrity. And therefore, when the city had to be designed, she had this vision. And she was only, as Alo mentioned, I think that's a very good observation, she was about, in her late, she was 89 years young, perhaps, in that kind of vicinity. And she was designing the city over the few, maybe 7-8 years prior to that. And then finally, 73 is when she breathed her last. So she had envisioned the city. And when we talked about rationality, the ceiling that rationality hits, and beyond that you find that you have to go beyond rationality. So she had one of the best architects in the world back then, Roger Auger. She actually got him all the way from France, somebody who had a very, very illustrious career, who had designed some of the top buildings back then. And he had a team of, if I'm given to understand, nearly 300 people working between Pondicherry and France, designing, making these diagrams, all of it. But then it was like a warp and a weft. When we talk of consciousness and the physicality, work and doing it with consciousness, she would have these trances. She would actually meditate and see the city slowly descending. She said, I can see it. It's there, absolutely. And these dreams of the divine, I'm paraphrasing it, she says they're more real than what we believe that we can see in a physical sense of the world. And so she was, in a way, integrating it with whatever Roger was coming back to her, and that is how this whole galaxy, the design, it's almost like a chakra, almost like it's a divine sacred geometry that she came up with. And the kind of details, attention that she gave. And if you look at it, many of the things she spoke of back then are absolutely not just contemporary, they're futuristic. For example, she said back then that in this element called the crown, I'm sure at that time Tesla or all that, Elon Musk was probably not even born. She said you'll have only electric vehicles. She's written it in her handwriting with a speed of 14 kilometers per hour. And then the kind of green cover that she spoke of, we have between the master plan, the city and the green belt, both of which together make the master plan about 84% of green cover. And then she also, when we talk of open spaces per capita, the design, she didn't leave it. It was not some sketchy set of lines that were drawn by her. She sat with the best of the best in this field and then had several rounds over a period of about 3 years. And I've seen the entire document, which was ready by her and which was also submitted to one of the funding agencies back then in the 70s with her signature. And if you see the kind of detailing, what is the population, what is the demographic that will live in this zone, what would be the age group of these people, what would be the size of a house which will be available for a single person, a family of 3. I think all these suffocating but very beautiful details, micro details, all of it she had gone into. And so, in a way, the city that she had actually very with her life breath, with all that she had put into it, she literally poured her consciousness into it. It was actually like a jigsaw puzzle, if we can say. She had put it all. And she said, I don't want any endless discussions on it. Come and build the city. She said, I don't want any discussions and talks on it, but build it. So it was like when we were all children, I'm sure we all played with jigsaw puzzles. And when it was there, it was different from art, where you had a piece of canvas, you had that choice of, having different colors, shapes. But as far as the city was concerned, you just had to place it the way she had, because there was a certain sacred geometry to it. So that is what the city was about. And there are 4 significant zones of the city. We've now also further, it was all there, but we've put it in the format that government also needs. So the per capita as well, that she designed at that time, per person, the norms that the urban planning and regional development and implementation frameworks that they require is about 10 to 12 square meters per person. As against it, what Auroville has given is about 200 plus square meters per person. So that's the kind of openness, all of it that she had thought of back then. So, and we've worked with some of the top architects of the world who've currently been there, including the, which prize is it? The Pritzker Prize winner, which is like the Nobel Prize in architecture. I hope I'm getting this right. This was Balkrishna Doshiji, the famous nonagenarian. We lost him a few years back. He was in Ahmedabad. So they've all, without exception, said that this design is absolutely futuristic contemporary. So that's the kind of life and soul that she had poured into this consciousness to have the city, which would be very, very unique, something which would be a lighthouse for the entire humanity.
Another great question. In terms of what is coming, we were fortunate enough to have the founder of Zoho gave a talk, was it last month? And it was fascinating to listen to him because he was talking about his time in Silicon Valley, and he said he was approached many times by people that wanted to buy him out, or at least buy a piece of him. And the question was always, what's your exit strategy? What's your number? And he said, my exit strategy is when I leave my body. I'm not interested in selling this out. So a very, very brilliant man. And listening to him speak, I got the sense that Auroville is going to be a laboratory for another generation of people like him. There's so many bright people in India right now. And they're people that are working on real world problems that can also be profitable. And I think Auroville is a perfect laboratory for this to happen. So that's how I would answer your question in terms of what's coming.
So the last point I'll make before we invite the audience to ask their questions, and that is the point of unity, which is, I think, integral to the very DNA of Auroville. So unity is at 2 levels. One is at the individual level, which you mentioned that it is twofold. One is the discarding of your own ego, but you have to be a willing servitor of the mother. And the other is, of course, we are all today living in a world where several wars are waging. And so there is also the unity international with national identities. And yet Auroville is not a place of annihilation of identity. So how would you, in your understanding of the vision of Auroville, reconcile unity at the individual level, working together in a community, and yet not becoming uniform, and at the same time national identities maintaining the best of what they have to offer in terms of culture and heritage from the world's various parts they come from, and yet be the prototype of an international unity place. So how do, in your vision, how do you, I think the mother is absolutely, I can't even think of the courage with which she envisaged this, especially, late 60s, early 70s. You had wars happening there also. You had the Vietnam War on, the Bangladesh War in 71. Never in the last century did we have a time of peace to dare to dream this way. So how do you, in your vision of things, reconcile these 2 identities and unities?
There's something that one has read about, it might answer this question, that the 3 key words that um, were the words when the French Revolution happened were liberty, equality, and fraternity. So in a way, Sri Aurobindo has actually gone on to say that if we were to base our entire, all of this, when he writes about life divine, on liberty, freedom, then it's like, it's like the free market theory, all right. I mean, if you see the Statue of Liberty, which is John American, the icon in a way of America, but we've seen the Occupy Wall Street, and we now know what is also happening there. This is so liberty alone, if that is the basis on which we anchor all of this, the entire society community, that's not going to be sustainable. On the other hand, if you look at equality, and there, if you say there is an annihilation of that individuality, of your cultural, whatever that you bring, your distinctness. And there, I think Mother too had spent a considerable part of her life, not only in France, but also for some significant time she was in Japan as well. And she talks about what is the unique signature of every country. So Japan too, I mean, she talks of beauty, I mean, that as the defining aspect of Japan. So every country has something like its own unique signature, and ultimately it's like the color white. It's the coming together of everything. I mean, you can't just have a monochromatic thing. Everybody, you need all different aspects, different age groups, different belief systems. But I think that capstone, if you look at liberty, equality, but he uses the word even in human cycle, brotherhood, fraternity. So if all this is there, you can talk, we do aspire for liberty, yes, but liberty alone cannot be the anchor or the lead thing that pulls the entire thing, and neither can it be equality. But if it is, yes, these could be two wheels, but if the main essence is of realizing that intrinsic unity, saying we're not different from each other, we may speak different languages, we may eat different food, we may dress differently, but and that is the essence, there's the same divinity in you, me, and in everything. So then there cannot be anything more, I mean, it's so respectful of everything. So I think that is probably the unity that she perhaps spoke of. I hope, Alok, that answers it.
That answers it perfectly.
Like I said earlier, Auroville, the mother saw Auroville as a microcosm of diversity. She wanted an international zone. She wanted countries to have their own pavilions so they were represented, so they could share the beauty and the essence of what they brought to the table. I'm fortunate enough to have been able to travel a lot, and every country I go to, I see something there that I need more of. There's a quality there that I can use more of. So, coming from America, we've become so overly invested in individualization and specificity, we've lost the connectedness that we need to really take the next step. So that's why it's essential to have this diversity, and we're all here to learn from each other.
Okay, so my bit is done. Now it's up to the audience. Please, I hope you're curious enough to ask questions. So I'll just request the questions to be to the point and short.
Hello. Thank you for the one. And I was a frequent visitor to Auroville during 1973 to 77, but not since then. That time I felt more of a club-like atmosphere. Sorry for the statement. The title says Auroville is the city of future. I want to hear from you, was the physical and social growth had been out of the set objective, or it had been organically compelled by various internal and external parameters. As you know, in the last 50 years, so many things had happened. Just I want to hear your views.
Is the mic with the other gentleman there? Then we can take both the questions together and answer them together.
Yes, I would like to compliment you for the excellent introduction about Auroville. Though I went one time to the Samadhi of Aurobindo in 2002 when I was about to write the entrance examination. But what impressed me was a very new idea of revolution. But I want to first ask Mr. John. He mentioned about individualization and specificity. But according to what I get from Ayn Rand, she is speaking about, she is telling that altruism is evil, sacrificing yourself for the greater good, or what you conceive as the greater good, is is evil. She is saying. So there is a bit of a paradox there, and I want to know whether the experiment in this is my second question. I want to know whether the experiment in Auroville has succeeded for what it was established. So first, answer me about Ayn Rand question.
So we answer both. You want to take this? Yeah, sure.
Okay, so if I understood your question correctly, sir, you spoke about coming in the 1970s, and you spoke about there was a certain attitude there, and I think that's a fair observation. Sometimes Auroville reminds me of some of the country clubs I've worked at over the years, where people feel like they're entitled and they're special, and this is part of human nature. This is something that needs to be exposed, it needs to be confronted, and it needs to be transformed. So that's how I would answer what I understood of your question. As far as Ayn Rand goes, I'm not quite that familiar with her work, although I appreciate your comment. I mean, Krishnamurti used to say that philanthropy perpetuates human misery. So I kind of understand where she's going with that, but at the same time, I don't see a conflict there in terms of unity. The unity that we're speaking of is not something that Ayn Rand is talking about. And to my point, the over-investment in individualization and specificity has only taken us to a point where we're not able to function. And I speak from as an American point of view. The country is extremely divided now, and in my opinion, that's the reason. It's overly invested in individualization and specificity.
I'll also probably add something to what you said. I think that observation, as John said, is it's not incorrect. I'm sure we've got this feedback from a lot of people. But having said that, I think a lot of people who came there as to be a part of this great adventure, I'm sure they came with the right intentions. But human nature, when you start having your own children, and then this whole thing of me, mine, my house, and then you're not supposed to own anything in Auroville. Everything belongs to Auroville, to the mother. So you're there, you have nothing of your own. Although you do everything, you're a willing servitor of divine consciousness. So you're working there as a servant of the mother and trying to excel in everything. But somewhere along the lines, I think this has happened. So as our chairman would also say, we would say, unfortunately, over the last several decades, the original, because I think he also asked this question, has this succeeded? So we would say we are on the path, as I mentioned earlier, the road to heaven is also paved with hell, as I didn't say that, Sri Aurobindo has also written that. Often when you want to really achieve something which is absolutely going to be a beacon light and perfect, we will have to deal with a lot of human imperfections within all of us. And I think human nature, what is the biggest challenge, as Alo so beautifully said, if you look at the whole world, it's of harmony. Or put in another way, it's about human nature. I mean, I may be fully alive to this, this commitment to want to be a part of this. But then somewhere along the line, there is the monkey in the mind, and then slowly it's a collective set of people, a clique, which starts feeling that no, we don't want a city of the kind, we want something else, we want to have our little Mediterranean club or whatever. So we have gone through all of that, but this is not to say, so this is also a part of the, and so we are now trying to deal with that as well, to see how we can accelerate the process of manifesting the city the way the mother wanted.
What is very important to, in fact, understand, sir, is the fact that neither the ashram nor is Auroville constituted or envisioned with perfect people. I think John touched upon it in his very first answer. So we are imperfect people, and I think coming to the ashram or Auroville thinking that it is going to be a peaceful stay, and we are going to be, away from the usual rat race of the world. If you are trying to escape from anything that you have not confronted and transformed, the mother sees to it that that problem will come up and you will have to work on it and you have to transform. It's not a place to escape and look for a life of idyll. We are in the process of creating that idyll, but we are under the hammer and anvil of the most exacting, perfect taskmaster. So it has never worked. That you have lived a life, and you want to have a happy retirement. You will not get it. Problems will come up. Human nature is so fallacious. It is going to small things will become big. So it's not a quiet place. Neither is the ashram a quiet place, nor is Auroville a quiet place. It's a furnace. We are being wrought into being the beings that she wanted us to be. So that's, I don't know.
With big hammers.
Yeah, you can't escape. If you, with the intention that, you've come to the place of peace, no, we're trying to manufacture that peace. And we have to transform ourselves in that process. So conflict is endemic. Derailment from the ideal is endemic. And slowly, we have to constantly remember the ideals, read them more often. I feel that's something that is very, very important. Read, go back to their idealism, what they have said. It's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah, like as we discussed about unity and liberty or freedom, and also we talked about external forces, internal blooming, and how it affects the external manifestation, and also he talked about altruism and all. So I want to put forth my perspective as a question, wherein I want to talk about, like no rules, which was put forth by mother. So for me, I feel like by no rules, it means like complete collapse, wherein we provide a safe space or like a empty space for the consciousness to collapse, because we have a lot of deep conditionings, right? So when from that space, when consciousness arises, for me, and I personally feel like consciousness means compassion plus awareness, because we have the divinity in all of us. So it's harmony and love, or whatsoever we want to call it as. So what she means by no rules is that from that space we can provide a space for genuine consciousness, choice or life, or like deep collapse in evolution. And
So what you're stating a point, you're asking a question.
yeah, I'm asking a question wherein I'm stating my perspective. Is that right? Because that actually answers kind of the questions they both even has put forth. Because when there are a lot of conflicts in the external world, and there are a lot of external forces which is also affecting the path of the Auroville or the mission, and also things like altruism and all, it's like what she said, like it's a paved hell towards heaven. It's all about the internal state, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Like she mentioned, and it's there in the mother, like Sri Aurobindo said,
Yeah.
an inner state made up of faith, sincerity, and surrender.
yeah.
So that is what is asked of us. And she says to walk through life armored against all peril and disaster. Only 3 things are needed. An inner state made up of faith, sincerity, and surrender. You have that, sincerely. And then you have to confront the obstacles. I mean, I shouldn't be answering. Can I?
Absolutely. I think that you've done a great job. I think Alu has greater pedigree. She's grown up in the ashram school environment and teaches there as well. So she must be, I'm sure, practicing this
We
all.
learned these by heart and so slowly internalized.
But you're right. I'll give you another example. Suppose, you have a cookie cutter, right? So sometimes you make things with the cookie cutter. That's sometimes a faster way of doing it. But on the other hand, you also want a flower to bloom. So can you actually cut the petals and say that the flower will come that way? So ideally, if you need rules, it's more like a bit of a mechanical structured system where you're governing a large number of people. So typically a state, an administration will have some rules which is more like a bit of a cookie cutter. This is not to say that everything, your hands are tied, legs are tied, but there are certain corridors within which you can. But then here the intent was you're above all that. So maybe it's like a tree initially which needs a tree guard. But then if you've become matured into a good tree, you do not need. So it's not that no rules you can go, because Mother herself has famously said, you can't be living like cats and dogs. She's actually used this word even in the context of Auroville. So it's not to be understood as no rules, as in you can do whatever, you can rob, you can steal. That's not what she meant. But she said, if you're an evolved person, and rightly as you said, with that compassion, sensitivity, and there's no other, then you will definitely, you will not want to hurt another, you will not want to grab other things. So that's the thing. But as Alo so beautifully articulated, every day for us, every moment is a struggle too. And we've had many instances, the people who live there, sometimes their own family, the kind of disharmony that it has led to, it's heart-wrenching. But I think it's a supreme sacrifice on their part, because they know that they're working towards realization of the city manifesting. So they're putting their sarvasva, as we say, consecrating everything, every bit of theirs to make this happen. And I think, yes, your point of view, I think, is...
One more question.
Madam, actually, last year I have watched some YouTube channel from News Minute, like, Auroville is losing the liberal culture. And then I have read an article in Tamil in the road by Anantu, like Sadhana Forest is converting, the sustainable Sadhana Forest is converting into factories, and then some of them you asked certain people to follow certain cultural law. What's really happening in the Auroville, madam? Last year actually so many things I've heard actually. Ask that Aurovilles to follow certain cultural law. I that I've heard and read actually. What's really happening?
So there are 2-3 things here. When people sign up, this is a voluntary, as we said, there is a charter. So this is not a city like, any other place. If there is somebody really interested in cultivating a forest, you have the whole of Himalayas, you have the Alps, you have the Andes, you can go and do that. But this, you've come here, and this is a vision-driven city. It's not a city, let's say, like a Jaipur, where, you've been living, your ancestors, and 600 years, 800 years, people. It's a green field. It's not a brown field city. It's a new city that the mother specially designed, and there was nobody there. So she invited those people who want to be there as willing servitors of divine consciousness. So the first requirement, and also this is something unique to India. I don't think anywhere else on the planet, no other government, and I think John, it'll be better if John gives his point of view there. I don't think any other country has been so magnanimous, although this, as I said initially, was started by the mother and Sri Aurobindo. In fact, all this land painstakingly, she negotiated with people, got them, often paid them much more than what they asked for or what was the prevailing price, because she didn't want to shortchange people and get the land. So it was done on a full edifice, on a foundation of goodwill, to create this special sand bed for a special kind of evolution to happen. People with that willingness who come there to consecrate, to give, that is what it was meant for. And as a special possibility, the government of India has given a dispensation of a special visa. We have, this is called the X visa, where you're allowed to come and work in Auroville as long as you practice and profess what is meant to be done there. But if you were to come there and indulge in everything else, which is an opposite of what has been stated there as the basic building blocks, the edifice of Auroville, then the simple question that Government of India also asks them, which people do ask is, well, you can go if you want to have something which is, if you want to set up a factory, if you want to do something else, you can go elsewhere. But this is meant to be a city which has to be manifested in the manner that was designed by the person who originally visualized the city. So it's a city which has to be manifested in the letter, spirit, form, and function the way the mother had envisioned it. So I think that answers your question.
Here is the last question, Ravi.
So my question is, how can we expand? How can you create more campuses like Auroville? For example, we don't just have one university in the world, right? We have so many universities because people thought, okay, it's a good idea, let's create more universities. But over time, the nature of university itself has changed. That's a different topic. But how can you create more campuses? Like, for example, if I want to have a campus, offshore campus in Chennai or in Delhi or Bangalore, I'm sure we have the land and money is probably not the issue, but convincing the people to invest in that land and other things, is spirituality the only way to convince them, or can science be a way, sustainable development be a way to convince these people to invest in the land and create more campuses?
Don't divorce science from spirituality. Please don't divorce. They are very much in conjunction. In fact, very often scientists who are much more trained in their mind to work towards ideals that depend more on empiricism and personal experience to consolidate the path rather than something that has been told. So there is no divorce between science and spirituality at all, actually, in the essence.
Yes, I just want to follow up on your question there, sir. I think some of what you're pointing at is pretty indicative of what happens in most societies. People become very complacent, and there also becomes a sense of entitlement and a sense of ownership. This is mine. I don't need anything from the outside world. And this is part of what we've had to face in Auroville. And I think, as Madam said, the government of India has been overseeing the project and given a lot to Auroville. And there has been a sense within the community that the laws of India don't apply to Auroville. And that's been a misconception. Auroville is not like the Vatican where we can make our own rules. And this has been part of the conflict. And also some of the strife has been around the master plan, which it's been ratified by the community. It was sidelined for quite a while, but this was something that the community itself had ratified. So as it's being implemented now, there are forces in Auroville that don't want to see it implemented, that want to have a small community, that don't want a city of 50,000 people, which is what the mother envisioned.
I think outside in, the problem is that whenever you read such an article, because even I read it too, they will mention the mother only in the preamble, stating that she envisioned this city, 1968, etc., master plan. And then if you analyze all of these articles, each and every point brought up has no mother in them. There is no vision of what she wanted the city to be. It is about eco-village, township, peace, clean air. Yes, that is all there, but where does the mother go out of the window in all of these discussions? So that is what, as an outsider, I'm not a full outsider because I have been born and brought up in the ashram. And something that I notice every time these articles come out, or somebody goes to even, I think there was even somebody on NDTV, the old NDTV, coming out and talking about. So they are very quick to say, we do not want to negate the mother's master plan. I think I'll be able to say this because you people have to be much more diplomatic in your answers. I do not need to be. So the point is this, that you have to ask yourself, but where is I understand respect of nature. But where in her vision is there no respect of nature? Why is respect of nature defined by you in your space. Where is it in line with the vision of this meticulous plan, beautiful artistic plan that she has laid out? So you should always look for where is the mother's vision in their actual complaint. And that is where you will see that there is a diversion from the vision. And that is so evident for someone like me who, for good or for bad, has read the Mother and Sri Aurobindo from childhood. So when I look at Auroville, whenever, in fact, my daughter went on a school trip to Sadhana Forest. She told us about this, about that, and the other. She studies in the ashram school, SAIC, where I teach. And at the end of it, I told her, and so the mother, she said it wasn't mentioned. So I said precisely. So that is what I want to. Whenever you read something, you have to go back to her words. She is detailed. She is lofty. She asks us a lot from us. And when you come to this nitty-gritty of these complaints, you have to ask yourself, but where is the mother's vision in all of your complaints? And then you will find the answer.
I can also add a little bit to this. One criticism is that trees were being cut. Now, out of the tree cover, we have, in fact, I would like some of our other people from Auroville also, you can sort of supplement this with facts. So for the Crown Road, which was a contentious issue, because this has been work in progress for the last 25, 26 years. It was not allowed. Each time you start cutting a few trees to lay a road. And what is the percentage of trees that were being cut there? 0.03% of the total tree cover, which means you have 99.97% of the trees intact. And anywhere in the world, if you have a road, you need to have water supply, road, today even internet, electricity, sewage, fecal sludge management. I mean, all these are essentials for people to live. So it starts from that, if there's a bus or a train meant for 100 people to sit there. But if there are 6 people who've gotten into it and then decided to bolt because it's very comfortable and they want to, hijack it, take it in their own way. So that's something of that kind, because over the years, the population as against 50,000, it was never allowed to go beyond 3,000, 3,500. So the current governing board, which was there, the term has just got over, we said that we must be totally, focused on implementing the master plan as was envisioned by the mother and manifest the city. And so it's with that intent that all this was started. So the minute you start this work, there would be, interests that get hurt, and then you would rush to media and court cases. We've had, how many, maybe Sindhuja, you should talk about the court cases. Huh? Around 30 court cases. And whose money, where is all this fund coming from? NGT, 2 years, everything came to a standstill. So, but I think in all of this, what you also feel is if the Govt touch is there, all could be done. So with one after the other we've had some young advocates who've done pro bono work for us, spectacular quality, brilliant minds that have helped us. One of them is sitting in the audience here. So I think that's the kind, we get help from unforeseen quarters because it's her work. It's something much larger than us. And slowly, one step after the other, we are progressing and we are determined to see the city manifest exactly the way she wanted it. And she designed this way back in '68. So sometimes these statements that this belongs to the current political dispensation, that's far from truth. I mean, all this, the antiquity is of 1968. So all we are saying is we want to be absolutely steadfast in seeing the city get manifested the way she wanted it. Because there is a certain sacred geometry to it. And it's simple. If you have a house, if you build a design, there's a place for everything and everything in place. Would you like to have the kitchen placed in the toilet or vice versa? So I mean, you can't say that anything goes, I want this to be converted into this. So that's where that little sense of discipline, preference, you have to make your choice subservient to her choice because there is, and you've signed up for it. You came here knowing fully well that you're going to be a part of the adventure of building the city the way it was laid out. So a little more details on it. And now coming back to your question, absolutely right. this is not meant to be a university, it's meant to be a multiversity, Auroville. So Mother 2 wrote that this is not meant to be a single ivory tower. Yes, for the problems of the world, Auroville was set up as something that would dramatically change the way, because just if intellect alone were to solve the problems of the world, why are we having all these conflicts? Why is it that we still have starvation when there's enough food for everybody? So it's not just the mental. There might be people, because along with the mind comes a twin brother or a twin sister called? Yes, you got it right. So the minute, and that is human nature or whatever. So then it could be an individual ego of a country, or the ego of a certain country trying to arm twist another country into doing things in a third country, and so on and so forth. So she wanted Auroville not as an individual, one entity alone. Of course, she wanted it to be perfected, but she said we must have more of these across the world. And incidentally, the governing board had and has taken a decision to have what are known as Auroville International Information Centers across India and the world. And we are in the process. In fact, many of our young people, we have Arun from the working committee. Where is Arun? So we have a lot of young people in Auroville who are now slowly, we are seeing if they can be taken, they can be ready to take this message of Auroville to different countries of the world, eventually different parts of India, and replicate this. Money will come because there is so much of a hunger, appetite for this. There's so much of, shall I say, disappointment, disillusion with the way current life, all the corporate battles, all of it. So people are aspiring for something of this kind, which would be a total breath of fresh air. So while we are trying to perfect or reach that status of manifesting the city, but we are totally open for having many such Auroville campuses elsewhere. That is on the agenda.
So it should be still organic growth.
Sorry?
It should be still organically grow.
Organically, yes, but then slowly with organically, you may also want to do cloning, and that's also science and spirituality are not different. So you may want to then replicate it a little faster. John, may I also make the presentation? Since Chandramouli sir is indicating that probably we should start this. I just thought normally in such discussions we end up with question answers and there's a bit of dissipation of the energies, but we thought we'll have a presentation at the end to tie it all up. I'll run through it. You're already familiar with a lot of things we've spoken about, but these pictures will make you touch, feel, and smell, if not physically. You'll get to see a little more of what Auroville stands for. This is the dawn fire that we have on the 15th of August, on the 28th of February. We'd like to extend a warm invitation to all of you. It's meant for men and women of goodwill from all across India and the world. So this year we had a record attendance, nearly 4/5 of the amphitheater in Matra Mandir. How many of you have visited Auroville? Okay. How many have not visited Auroville? Okay, so please do come, and even those that have come can come again. So what is Auroville? We spoke about this, the city of dawn. It's located not in Pondicherry, as many of us sometimes believe. It's actually located in Puram district. It's a part of Tamil Nadu, although it is proximate, it is close. It's located geographically near Pondicherry. And it's the city of consciousness, where the emphasis is on unity. Unity, not a conditional unity. I like you as long as you follow what I do or not. But it's that sense of, there's no other, so we're all one. That unity, which is nothing but the divine. So it's designed to foster material and spiritual research, community living and sustainable development. And basically, it's a life based on unity, peace, and human evolution. We spoke about it all, so I think it will help you understand this. This is the Auroville Charter that we spoke about. So if you see in French, since we have Etienne here, mais pour séjourner à Auroville, il faut être le serviteur volontaire de la conscience divine. Am I right? Is my French okay? So that is what she said. But to live in Auroville, one must be a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. Vision and mission. So the vision of Auroville is encapsulated in the charter, and the mission is the master plan that we have, because that encapsulates it. The beginning, how it started. So we had this piece of land which was acquired painstakingly by the mother, and we have some very, very senior ashramites. There is a 96-year-old gentleman there, Mr. Dayanand. He was in the nursing home a few days back. I just spoke to him today as I was coming here. They all spent hours and hours talking to farmers, because you didn't want to, really spending time to painstakingly acquire this land. And it was attended back then by over 5,000 people, including UNESCO representatives. And it had soil from 124 countries and 23, at that time India perhaps only had 23 states. Soil from all of these was brought there and consecrated in the urn that you see at the center. This is the symbol of Auroville. So she says the dot at the center represents unity, the supreme. Unity is synonymous with the supreme, which means that is the one, which is the foundational idea of this country, isn't it? The identity of India, to say Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vipra Vadanti. There is just that one truth. The key elements of Mother's vision: human unity. It wants to be a universal township, and the purpose is to realize human unity. Spiritual life beyond religion, and also to identify work as yoga, that all life is yoga, freedom and discipline. The freedom that we want is not license. Very beautifully, it's as we discussed, it's not no rules in that sense. Liberty does not mean to follow one's desires, but on the contrary, to be free from them. Somebody asked about rules, right? Does this answer? So there's a monkey, there's our ego driving us or pulling us in different directions. So real freedom is to not get diverted by that, but be very focused on vision of the future. So humanity is not the last rung. So we're all works in progress. We are still evolving. We still have a lot of work to be done on the inner. And the medium to do that is work on the outer. We can't go into a cave and live there, because it's about engaging with people. So the answer that was given by Alo, we have to figure out how do we live together and resolve. So this is the galaxy plan that the mother gave. It's a beautiful plan that we have. We are now steadily, slowly moving towards actually seeing this take shape. And it's based on this, a spiral layout combining function and symbolism. So there is a central element called the crown, and she likens the crown to the spinal cord. The central part of Auroville is Matru Mandir, which is called the soul of Auroville. But there's a circular element called the crown. It's like a plaza. It's not just a road, but it's an element where people, children, that's where she said you will not have any vehicles but e-vehicles at a speed of 14 kilometers per hour. So you can have cafes, poetry reading, music, gardens, people strolling, children playing, and all those beautiful things happening there. And of course, there are the radial roads, axial roads that go out in 4 different zones, which are the cultural zone, industrial zone, international zone, and the residential zone. And we also want to have elements like a toy train, little things that will add more beauty and functionality. Only 38% of the city will be built. The rest would be all open space, which is, as was mentioned, WHO's 9 square kilometer guideline. As against it, it offers 212 square kilometers of open space per capita. And ecological balance rooted in spiritual aspiration is the identity of Auroville. The Foundation Act 1988, it was enacted unanimously by Indian Parliament to recognize Auroville as a unique socio-spiritual township. It has 3 bodies, the governing board, and unequivocally, this has also been ratified by the Supreme Court, of course. The Act very clearly states it. All the power of superintendence, direction, and management, all aspects of it are vested in the governing board. We also have the role and International Advisory Council, which is to advise the governing board on various aspects. And there is a residents' assembly, which is defined as everybody in the register of residence, which means that everybody who is a resident of Auroville is meant to be a part of this. So there is nothing like a formal, it's not a conglomeration or actually a people coming together kind of thing, but then everyone to give their inputs, but ultimately the final say would be of the governing board. The renewed development phase in the last 5 years, I must say, express my deep gratitude to Government of India, the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister. I mean, this timed very well with G20 and this whole concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. No other country that we can think of really has something of this scale, this grandeur, with the core essence, with beauty, aesthetics, all of it. In fact, I too have traveled to many countries of the world, but I dare say, at the risk of sounding a little immodest, that if you were to visit our Matra Mandir, I think these are, without doubt, some of the most beautiful places you can ever dream of anywhere on planet Earth. So we have the support of our governing board. I think a lot of traction has happened in spite of roadblocks, obstacles, whether it's the courts, whether it is news laundry, and several things that kept happening. But I think slowly, steadily, with that faith, sincerity and surrender, our team has been marching ahead. And the governing board also resolved to not only implement the master plan, but we've actually started it with full right earnest. We're also in the process of inviting and welcoming more and more people to come and be in Auroville as volunteers, interns, visitors, and eventually, if things match well, to come and stay there, to be a part of this bold and beautiful experiment. So we also want to take this opportunity to spread this word far. From all across India, from all over the world, we want to have more and more people come there to actually immerse themselves, their work there, and then choose if they want to. And Auroville too has certain stipulations. There are some codes of conduct required. There's certain residence criteria which we would want people to abide by if they want to live there. Housing strategy. The goal is to increase the population to 15,000 in the near term. So we are, and I must really acknowledge the help we're getting from Ambassador Tirumurthy ji. We are actually working with MEA and reaching out to different countries of the world and see if we can have not just the Indian diaspora, but local citizens of those countries come here, initially perhaps as a visitor, as a volunteer, and eventually choose to be here. And then community engagement, over 50 visioning walks in community. I must share here that we had a crown walk just on the, was it 28th or 20th of the eve of Mother's birthday. And we had the German Consul General, he had come there. It was very sweet of him, Jaya was there. And we also had the relics that were consecrated there, offered there that day. And he also joined in the walk. And it was a beautiful, so we have all these events that are happening and a lot of envisioning walks, community meetings. So these are, since 2021 to 25, we've had many of these sessions, dream weaving, heart weaving, landscape, public amenities around the crown are being planned. And we want to have more of these action seminars, workshops, working with not only experts within Auroville, but also experts from outside. And we have Goel Saab here, who used to be with, he was a special director general with CPWD. We're working on an international conclave with some of the top architecture schools of the world and actually present the master plan and have, because Mother wanted architect interns, students from all over the world to come here and work to build the city. So we want to really now, it is happening, but we want to get it in a more focused way. These are projects developed by the Auroville Town Development Council. The team of TDC is also here. New Town Hall, Habitat, Line of Progress Housing, New Birth Housing Cluster, Vocational Skills Development Center. So this is for the youth of Auroville and for a public food court as well. And then the Crown Road, of course, is getting completed. We have a very beautiful place called the Morning Star Women's Wellness Center, Holistic Center, which is where we're seeing how birthing. So we have a midwife from America called Paula Murphy who stays there. So we're trying to see how we can have these initial 1,000 days of birthing are supposed to be supremely important for development of all the neural networks of babies. And so if you really want to have designer babies with that evolution, with that little shot in the arm, so we are trying to actually make this the destination for people who want to have conscious birthing for the mothers and parents that plan it. Mother's Flower Garden. This is again a beautiful space which has already taken shape. Mother had identified about 800 plus flowers, and she said, I want to touch and feel each of those flowers. So there are very interesting stories. Some of these flowers don't grow in our weather conditions. So back then in the ashram, people would get them and place them inside the fridge and actually see how, and they survived, a lot of them. So we have this Mother's Garden is going to be a home for all the 800 plus types of flowers, and she attributed a certain consciousness and name to each flower. For example, bougainvillea that we see, the pink or the purple bougainvillea that we see, she gave it the name protection. And similarly, the Firangi Pani or champa, the white champa that we see, we also probably call it Nag Champa. She called it psychological perfection. So Parijat, the flower, she called it surrender. So there are aspiration. Otherwise, you should correct me. So we're having this garden now on a sprawling 20 acres, am I right? And then set 5. And there's a lot of space there. It's taking a very good shape. Matramandir Service Compound and Lake, Kalpana Sports Complex. Oh, zoomed in, so I need a bit of, I have to escape. Slideshow, website. Super. So we completed this, and then we have community-led Aurovillian project, CIRU. This is again a fascinating project, a center for integrated research and human unity. So this is again something, I mean, even if there are people in this audience and those that are hearing us later on through other forums, if there's a way to come and join us, we are setting up a multidisciplinary think tank for seeing what is it, what is human unity all about, how do we realize it, how do we attain it. And of course, the Swaram Production Center, I don't know how many of you have experienced, there's something called a sound bath, for example, and they make some of the most beautiful, again, this is a beautiful story. An Austrian monk, he used to be, Aurelio, apparently, that was his, what is it called, before he came to Auroville. And then there were 2 villages where they were absolutely, there was a lot of enmity, hostile fights, Katti Sunday, as we say, people were busy, ready to chop people's heads off. So to actually get them into some semblance of unity and harmony, he started with these musical instruments, and today it is one of the best units which is very popular here. They're setting up also something in collaboration now. We're doing this with A.R. Rahman. There's a center coming up even in Dharampur, the Srimad Raj Chandra Center, and many such places. The world's largest chime in Bangalore airport is also made at Swaram. And then Sri Aurobindo's virtual museum, this is now taking shape. We'll see its completion very soon. Staff housing, visitors center, parking infrastructure, and then we've had with CPWD, we've had the entire survey of Auroville, and then the fecal sludge treatment plant, water infrastructure for residential zone, radial roads, they're all ready and getting readied. The plans have been made, sustainability and smart city vision again. So as I mentioned, we are net positive, and we've also signed an MOU and we're getting funded by CDAC to have a smart city complete a ward room to see all the parameters, whether it's related to water, electricity, OFC, all of it, and renewable energy and a smart mini grid. So this is perhaps one of the first in the country to actually have solar power. We are net positive, but also to ensure that the day and night part of it, that it is done with this battery smart mini grid project. It was a Pune-based startup that has worked with us at Auroville Consulting. And of course, electric mobility, we have e-vehicles. There's an entity called Kinesi which offers these cycles, electric cycles and scooters, water management, ecological infrastructure, and of course the CDAC partnership, I just spoke about it. Education. This is again a very important area where Auroville is doing a lot of work. We have an entity called SIRE, Sri Aurobindo Institute of International Education and Research. So we're working there, and we have nearly 23 schools, if we include even the smaller units and so on, different schools for a population not just of about 3,500 people, but also for people who live in the villages. We call it the bioregion. So we have some schools which are catering to children who live in the villages that flank Auroville. And I must say that there is something very special about our schools, at least the kindergartens and the younger schools. And slowly we are trying to also get in options, fortifying people with choices. If you want a certification, that will be available. Or if you want to have a free progress completely with no certification, that would also be possible on the lines of ashram. Legal challenges and victories. So we have two young lawyers who've been here, Vaibhav and Nitesh, they're here. They've been helping us, and of course with our team, Sindhuja and the entire team, a bunch of 22 legal petitions right up to the Supreme Court. But fortunately, with her grace, we have had one breakthrough after the other. Of course, a lot of efforts, hard work, and the courts have actually very clearly said that the Residents' Assembly has an advisory and not an executive role. So all of this has been reiterated. It was in the Act, it is in the Act, but this has been further reiterated and endorsed. Then if you look at the production and service units of Auroville, we have many entities in all. While there are 150 production and service units, we have about 700 units, trusts, entities that make a host of products, from incense sticks to candles, all the way to some of the best, as John would say, if you want the top 5%, the confectionery that you'd find in Austria or Vienna, you'll find it in Auroville. So whatever we do it well, including protests. So the garments, conscious garments, sounds, paper toys, eco toys. So we want to welcome you all. One of the things, Gopal, we had in mind is every Sunday on the crown, we're now trying to design the crown with the 12 petals of the mother that would have an identity at each of the 12 locations. So maybe once a month, if we can have people, your members from the Chennai International Center and all of these, if they can come there to smell, touch, and get a bit of a immersion into Auroville to see what it is. Because I think we need to take the story of Auroville to more and more people, because it is meant for men and women of goodwill from all across India and the world.
Yes, ma'am. Do you all have any sports activities?
Yes.
What are all? Can you elaborate about it?
I will. So it's not a part of the syllabus here, but quickly. So we have one of the best Frisbee teams. So our teams have gone in the World Frisbee tournaments. They've gone up to the finals at various levels. Other than that, we have surfing, water surfing, and there's a full-fledged entity called Deha Shakti. So there is a bunch of games that we play there. And this year, again, one of the things we've done in partnership with the ashram is the Physical Education Board has been set up. And we made a curriculum for physical education teachers. And given that India is now likely to host the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games are definitely happening here. So we are in touch also with various governments, state governments, to see if their sports teachers can come here, get trained, and go back. So all those things are happening in a very structured system. And Pilates, we have a good team. A bunch of sports. Anything you'd like to add? Tennis, Aikido, martial arts.
Do you all have a gymnasium?
Yes.
Weightlifting?
Yes. We have several gyms. Also open, there is something called the Calisthenics Park. So we have 2 of them now, Jaya. It's in a place called the Mahalakshmi Park, and we would really like to welcome you all. Come and experience it.
I just visited it 12 years back, so
So lot has happened since then, and that's why the news laundries and So this is toys that are made there, and then we have all these. There's a center called the Quiet Healing Center. So we have, just as you have shiatsu, we have watsu there, and it's a very, very invigorating experience, different forms of healing and so on. So the relevance now, it offers a unique urban model where spirituality guides. So it's not the sovereignty of money, it's not the sovereignty of anything else, but it's the sovereignty of the sovereign, the divine. So that's the key. And of course, it integrates ecological restoration, integral education, and human unity. And education, it's about lifelong learning. So in Auroville, even if you have a person who's 95 years old, we're all the way mother wanted it. She too, she practiced and professed what she said. So till the age of 93, she would be busy learning, contributing. And at this point, I also want to take this opportunity to say that we have Mr. C.K. Ashok here. We are planning to host the Startup Beach Festival in Auroville in July. So we're very happy that we're all partnering. This is a part of the initiative under the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Honorable PM. They are, so there was a beach festival for startups done at Mangalore, and this is perhaps the second edition. So we also want to invite those of you interested in it. Of course, the IIT Auroville IIT Sustainability Campus. So that is also taking shape. We are absolutely, the MOU has been signed, and we are waiting for it to actually take shape in a few weeks from now. Invitation. Now these are our asks of all of you, and you can spread word around. Co-creating Auroville. So if there is a way to accelerate the physical manifestation of our shared vision, if you can help be a part of this, give your time, give your ideas, give your resources, and also lead, connect us with some of the people who may be interested in making all these designs, etc., for housing, water, roads, all of that. Weaving expertise, meaningful participation, synergies with CSR teams, NGOs, all of that, social enterprises, all this is possible. And then deepening the connection, immersion and service in all these, experiencing personal growth, those of you from the realms of areas, domains of architecture, urban design, finance, IT, legal aspects, even writing, research, storytelling. I mean, just about anything that you're passionately interested in. Auroville does offer those avenues, possibilities. And even monthly immersion visits, offshore retreats. I'm sure many corporates today plan retreats, off-sites, and things like that. We have some very good, for example, we have a guest house called Nirja. It used to be called the Afsane Guest House, and Kalyananda runs it. And we have about 40 rooms or in all. And it can accommodate people. It has a beautiful, I mean, the ambience, all of it is really good. So if there are corporates interested in having retreats or some quiet time for you to, Chintan Shibirs, as we call it, all that would be wonderful. Regenerative agriculture. We have a lot of farms, forests. Of course, this is an area, I must confess, we have to really pull up our socks and do some work. So if there's anybody passionate about agriculture, horticulture, all of it, please come be a part of this. We would like you all to also help us in this. Videos, blogs, and of course for social media as well, we want many of you to come here and move for Auroville. The Auroville Marathon is very popular. It is held every year in February. So sports, you asked for it, so there's a marathon. But we're now thinking also of doing this a little more frequently. It doesn't have to have the periodicity of 1 year. Similarly, the cyclothon, walkathon. So all of these are extremely popular. And finally, the world is preparing. It isn't just seeking assistance. It's inviting you all to help us connect, create, and collaborate. So as Mother said in 1970, it's so very relevant today, isn't it? If you look at all that is happening around. This is what she wrote. The world is preparing for a big change. Will you help? Thank you.
What Gopal called a mystery. And recently I came across, I think it would be apt to mention it here, the movement from YouTube to iTube, moving internally. So I think it would be a great opportunity for you to take up the kind invitation given by Madam to visit Auroville and experience what it has to offer. Because finally hearing is, experiencing is the real eating the pie rather than hearing about it. So thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. I hope this is the beginning of many such initiatives to take Auroville to the world and let people know what's happening and how it is a unique experiment. And we at the CIC, we are thrilled to have been part of this journey. Thank you very much, and we'll continue our collaboration with you on the annual literary festivals that we have been doing for the last 2 years, and also on any other opportunity that you think would be relevant for the Chennai International Center. So, very good evening to all of you, and thank you for coming out in large numbers and filling up this hall for this event. Thank you.